Think it's happening.
Is it on?
I think so. Yay. I
We're
think
here.
it's happening. I think we're
Hey,
live.
hello.
I think we're live.
All right.
So, welcome, friends. It's so good to be here with you. And today I have a very, very special guest. So, I have my dear friend and client, Tommy Berg. And hello, Tommy.
Hello.
Yay. And I wanted to bring you here today because I find that when I'm speaking with so many folks out there, that so many people tell me, well, Freedom, I'm just going to have to deal with this for the rest of my life. I'm just going to have to deal with this relationship with food for the rest of my life. I'm just going to have to deal with all these things. You know, I just can't get it. I've tried everything out there. And I'm like, oh my gosh, there's freedom for you. There's freedom that's possible. And sometimes when I just say it over and over again, people are like, yeah, Deb, well, that's, whatever, maybe for you. I'm like, no. So I'm so honored, Tommy, to bring you here today to just so people can hear directly from you what your experience has been, what that's been like.
Yeah.
And I cannot wait to dive in with you. So
Okay.
thank you. Thank you so much for being here.
I can't thank you enough for pioneering this incredible path. I've said that to you before, but I'm still thanking you because the path continues for me. So
It
thank
does for me
you.
too.
Yeah.
It just continues to evolve and evolve.
Yeah.
So friends, first of all, we are using some technology to be doing this live interview. And if we get some kind of technical issue and if we go offline for a moment, stick around because we will pop right back on. So don't go anywhere. And Tommy, let's just dive right in here. So, right before we started working together, what was going on for you? What were some of the challenges that you were really struggling with that had you go, I might need some help? What was that?
Well, I had retired, and it maybe been 6 months or so when I came to a meetup that you were giving about food addiction. At that point, I didn't even consider myself a food addict, which is kind of laughable. I just had this problem with not being able to stay on a diet and lose weight. So, that was my only problem. But um, I was living a life that was really out of touch. I was lost, feeling like I didn't have a purpose, not having my job anymore. I thought I would be happier and freer, but it actually felt worse because I didn't know what to do with myself. Ended up isolating more and kind of being a little depressed. And my food obsessions had continued to the point where I was driving myself crazy for years, like I always had been. I mean, just constant dieting and constantly thinking, oh, well, that's just not a doable diet, so let's try a different one. I'd lose weight and gain weight, and the binging was keeping me separate from people because I would need to hide it. I would come home, I'd be like a half an hour later than I would be coming home because I'd stop off and get 4 candy bars, have to, throw the wrappers away before I got to the car so I could eat them before, and then of course sit there for a little bit so I could go home and have a normal dinner. So I was doing weird stuff like that, and that was just, not even, I was so used to doing that kind of a thing that I didn't even realize how damaging that was to me and to the people around me, how separate it was keeping me. So food was a huge issue, and the constant brain, kind of whirling about food was a big deal. And the other thing, which is no surprise, was that I had been married maybe a couple years earlier, and that was really on the rocks. We were constantly arguing, and so that was my life back then. And I didn't see most of it. I just didn't see it for what it was.
Well, and thank you for sharing that. And thank you just for your rawness and your honesty, because this is the stuff that I feel like people are thinking, I'm the only one that does this. This is just me. And I love what you share, because I didn't think that I was a food addict. I didn't think, I just thought I just need to get this under control. I just need more discipline. I just need to, when things just stop being so stressful, at work, or when things kind of calm down over here, when I can just lose those next 10 pounds, like, then I'm just going to be able, I just need to do this little thing over here. And
Mhm.
then I'll stop being so
Right.
psycho about food. I'll stop thinking about it
Exactly.
all the time, but it never occurred to me that I had an addiction. I didn't really understand what that meant. For me, that had a totally different connotation. So I really
Right.
appreciate that you shared that, and even in spite of all of that, that when you kind of saw, hey, there's something like, it's something called you forward about it.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. And tell us a little bit about when you actually decided, because I find this is a huge part,
Yeah.
the decision to actually go for help. Um,
Yeah.
what came up for you around that? Did you have resistance? Did you have fear that it wasn't going to work, or that it was like, snake oil or something? Like,
Well,
what came
what
up for you?
happened was that I was brought by a friend to one of your meetups. And I my resistance came more after I started the program. but what happened in that meetup was that it left me in tears, because the one thing you communicated so clearly that I really got was the concept about the feedback loop, that everything I'd been stuck in this pattern my whole life, and I'm not a young person, that I've been stuck in this pattern my whole life of trying to make myself better, get all my needs met from the outside, and then that doesn't work. And so then I try to do the next thing to make myself better. And none of it ever worked. And it was this constant loop. And I suddenly realized that that's what I was doing, and that nothing would ever change. And so I felt actually relieved, but very like sort of dumbstruck that I'd been doing this for so many years. And so I knew I absolutely had to do this. And then there was the financial thing that, I'm sure you remember, I couldn't do it. There was no way I could do it. And then somehow miraculously, with my wife's help, who sort of sensed that this was imperative for me to do, we managed to find a way to do it. And so I did, and it's it's the best thing that ever could have happened to me. It's changed
Mm.
my life.
So I want to get into that in just a moment. And I want to kind of, before we go there, because that's like, yay, it's so
Mhm.
yummy, it's so juicy. Um, I'm curious, like, along your journey, um, because I think that one of the things that I find with folks when I'm chatting with them is, they're like, listen, I've joined a gym before and I get all excited, or I've started a new diet and I'm all excited and I'm all in it, for like a few days or even for a week. And then I just lose steam. I just lose that motivation. I go back to my old habits. I don't want to start getting help and then fall back in my old ways. And I've now wasted a bunch of money.
Yes. Yeah.
And and so what would you say to someone who is kind of, who's kind of thinking that? Because the way I see it is, like, we've all done that, like, you join the gym on the first day of the new year and you're like, I'm gonna do this. And then, like, by the next week, you can't even find the fob, to let you into the gym, like the little key thing to let you into the gym, like you just lost it, and I feel like that's exactly what happens when we're trying to do it on our own and figure
Right.
it out and self monitor and self motivate. We just can't do it. But what would you say to somebody who said,
It's hard because I was on such a hamster wheel around it, because I had so much resistance about finding what I felt was my source. I was on such a hamster wheel. That was my biggest block. I know that um, I I had somehow a sense that there was a light at the end of the tunnel in the process for me. And it proved to be true. I didn't lose faith in that, but what I had a lack of faith in is that I was worthy and that I would do it. I didn't think I would actually do it.
mm,
And I got very frustrated. And to try to explain what helped me pop over that big speed bump that I was in, it had to do with part of the program that had me learn to surrender my, well, I don't want to use the word surrender, that had me learn that it was out of my control, and that there was a weird sort of catch 22. It's
Mm,
like I was creating my problems,
mhm,
and I was thinking I had to figure out how to fix my problems, and I had to figure out the program, and I had to, everything I was trying to do was to sort of manipulate it mentally, and that hamster wheel was keeping me stuck.
mhm,
And wanting me, I did, wanted to give up. I had a commitment, but there were times when I procrastinated to the point where I almost did give up. And I think the thing that finally got me was that process of not being able to find my inspiration, feel connected, of the whole process of feeling even more frustrated with myself, because now I'm trying to figure all of this out on top of all the other things I used to figure out. I was obsessing about the program,
mhm,
and about what I didn't like about it. And I was really obsessing. Um, I think what finally got to me was that obsession really brought me to my knees. And I think what helped me get over that was the willingness to feel that pain. I can remember at one point that it was after the meditation, where I first discovered my inner child, which I thought was baloney anyway, but no, I have four. So, but I think after that meditation, things softened for me. So I think it was actually getting real about my feelings, and there were so many feelings inside that I was completely unaware of, that I was carrying around as a little girl, and but part of me. And I think also the willingness to feel, I just felt the emptiness, because I was so frustrated that I couldn't connect to a source, and I couldn't discover source, even though for years I had considered myself this spiritual being, because I'd studied metaphysics and studied with a shaman for years and years and years, and I was firmly identified as a spiritual being. So why was I having this problem? And it was, suddenly I couldn't connect, because it wasn't in me. The spirituality was out here somewhere. And what happened on the day that things tripped the switch for me was that this whole process of frustration and constant obsessing brought me to my knees, literally. And I just was crying. I remember thinking, I'm so empty. I'm just an empty pit. And I'm so empty that nobody could ever love me enough to fill that emptiness.
mhm.
When I was willing to feel that, something happened after that. That was the first spark of being willing to feel that empty. I heard it's okay, because that's how much you can be filled. And that
Mm.
was my first sense of being connected to something bigger than me, that was in me, that wasn't outside here. So that was,
Tommy, I've got chills. That's so, so powerful. And I had a very similar experience myself. It's like letting yourself, you know, the thing that I prided myself on for so many years was having my stuff together, or at least appearing like I had my stuff together, even if I felt like I was a mess on the inside. But I never wanted anyone to see that. I was like so addicted to image management and having everyone think that everything was okay. And I thought emotions were messy and totally unprofessional. And I never wanted to let myself, like, for me, it felt like if I were to feel that intense emotion or that sense of emptiness, I would just feel so out of control. I just drop into this endless abyss and lose myself and never regain consciousness, and all would be lost. Like, I just felt like that's the surest path to, deep depression and death. And so I always, what I say is, I held myself above the fire. I never let myself fully drop in it.
mm,
And I thought that that was actually me being responsible and me being, not victimy or whatever my
mm,
judgment was. What I didn't realize is that I was cutting off my nose to spite my face. And it
mhm,
was only when I actually got so exhausted, for you it was frustrated, for me it was exhausted, of I just can't keep up this anymore. I feel so empty. I feel I don't even know who I am. So used to being what I think others need me to be, or being who I think I need to be. I don't even know what's this. I don't know. And it was in that, like, that just absolute, I wouldn't even use the word surrender either, because that makes it sound so much more elegant than it was. You know, it was like this collapse into this puddle of, it can't get any worse than this.
Mm-hmm.
And in your same way, in that moment, in that emptiness, in that nothingness, that not needing to fillness that I had, something came in to fill that. Something said to me, well, if it can't get any worse than this, then it can only get better from here.
Yeah.
And it's very, very similar experience where it's like, oh my gosh, we think that we're doing the right thing for ourselves by trying to get control over it and trying to figure it out and not making it anybody else's problem and keep it over here and hide this and be who people need you to be and put on a happy face. And we are absolutely thwarting our own path of freedom. So thank you so much for presencing that. That was when you let yourself fully feel that something cracked through. And I also love that you shared this, that you had this initial motivation, I've got to do this work. And then you hit some resistance. And what I share with people is, guys, girls, ladies, gents, this is not like you're going to come in and you're like this kind of like this pie chart, or not pie chart, but this graph of like, you know, you're just going to go all the way up here. I'm starting and here is freedom. And you're just going to kind of move up there. It's like this backwards, off the chart, you know, falling down below the chart. You know, it's really all over the place. And I say, until you hit that first speed bump of resistance, it's the honeymoon phase. It's just the honeymoon phase. When you actually hit that first speed bump, what I say to people is, great, now we've just started. Welcome to the program, because this is the stuff that we have been running and hiding from our whole lives. And now we can get real. And this is exactly where this process meets you. So thank you for speaking into all of those pieces. So what I want to know from you, Tommy, you know, as you look back and you were struggling with your relationship with food, you were struggling in your relationship, in your marriage, you were struggling, it sounds like, with control or needing to figure things out. And then it also sounds like you were struggling with this sort of like disembodied spiritual self, you know, this kind of like this conceptual spiritual belief or philosophy that wasn't translating into your own life. And so when you just think about like where you are now, like what has shifted, what are you experiencing now, where are you at?
Oh my goodness, there's so much to say. I have to speak into what I'm feeling first, because I have such a long list, but the most important thing is that I feel that presence within me. And that what used to be a duplicitous, I used to feel that I identified as a spirit being who was having a physical experience, but the me was physical. I mean, wasn't physical. The me was purely spiritual, and my body was just a vehicle, and it had nothing to do with who I was. I used to say who I really was, and that, you know, and it doesn't matter if I die because my spirit goes on. So it was like I was totally discounting my body. I feel completely different now, and it's even evolving more and more, that I feel that I'm living with that love, that inspiration, that sense of joy and gratitude, and that whatever I felt was a spiritual embryo growing inside of me has developed has blossomed into something I feel. So that it's not just spiritual, it's actually physical. I feel the emotions and the physicality of joy and of gratitude, and that what I love maybe the most is that sense of well-being when I go to sleep at night, and when I wake up, that sense of well-being. And you know, like at my best moments, I have this sense of sort of a positive possibility, like, well, what's going to happen next? And I haven't had that feeling of the excitement of the day and what it would bring since I was a little kid,
Mhm.
staring at the wallpaper, at 6 in the morning before everybody else is up and you're dying to get up and go do something. And I have that now again. Um, the other things that follow from that is that my marriage is amazing and getting better and better all the time. And whatever speed bumps we hit, we can sort of make mincemeat out of it much more quickly. And food is not a big issue. I mean, I don't really think about it a whole lot. It's something that is comes automatically. Like I thought, when I start to get into my head, which I do, I need such and such after I had my little breakfast patty. And I'm thinking, oh, and so I go to the refrigerator, open the door, and I hear inside, you don't need that. So I close the refrigerator door. It's just not an issue. It's not a big deal. And so things just are lighter, easier. I'm having more fun. And that's pretty much it it's not a nutshell. Can't say that it's a nutshell, but that's it.
No, it's so good. And also, because I think one of the things that you said was that you're constantly like trying to lose weight and losing weight and gaining it back. And, and I mean, I've known you for what now, 3 years?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And you've had some pretty consistent.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that part.
I
See,
know this
it's
is what
almost not an issue.
well, this is what's so funny is that people come to me and they're like, I just got to lose the weight. It's this big thing. And then literally, like we were just speaking with the class that's graduating, this month from the Freedom Embodied Academy. And I'm going around and I'm asking, well, what's your experience? And like, not one person said, oh yeah. And I've gotten free from food and I've lost weight and all these, because it's like, it's such a non-issue anymore that it just
Right.
doesn't even, you don't even think to talk about it.
Well, it's
But
funny because I look at myself and I know I've changed, I've aged quite a bit in 3 years, but it doesn't matter because one of the other things that happened was that I learned to love the me that looks back at me in the mirror. And it's like I don't judge it, but beyond that, I did lose weight and it's stable. Not on that up and down thing anymore. I don't weigh myself. I don't even know how much I lost because I was able to start exercising so vigorously that my body changed from exercising and I went down 3 sizes. I have no idea how much I lost. It may have been 15, 20 pounds. I don't know, 25 pounds. It's not huge and I'm still chubby, but I don't care. I feel good and it's not an issue and I'm active and I exercise. And so, yeah, for me, that's sort of a little miracle that I forgot to mention.
it's so good. And how, because I find that the path of freedom, I mean, it's sort of like people come because they're like, oh my gosh, I just want to be free from food. And then that just becomes like one of the many, many
Yeah.
blessings that you get. And you've already spoken into some of those other blessings. How would you say this path of freedom has affected the way that you interact with people, like if there were any sort of people pleasing patterns that happened before, or just ways that you weren't authentically yourself, how has that shifted?
Oh gosh. Well, one of my biggest bugaboos, which you know about, was just flipping out and getting really pissed off and getting controlling back when people tell me what to do or give me unsolicited advice. But I was a huge unsolicited advice giver, and that's one thing that's really changed a lot. I mean, it's not like I never do it, but it's really diminished. Is that I don't get pissed off at people anymore. It just doesn't. Things don't. I'm not connected to that automatic reaction anymore. People can tell me things. I used to have to. If people expressed a strong opinion I disagreed with, even if they weren't disagreeing with me directly, I always felt the need to represent the opposite. I would always have to play devil's advocate, if I would see my wife doing something that I thought, could be done better, I sometimes could not stop myself, from saying something. And I would think, don't say it, don't say it, don't say it. And I'd do it anyway. So, um, and I just don't have as much aggravation about things. And one of the most beautiful things that's happened is I've had a very, very difficult lifelong history with my sister. And this has allowed me to deal with her very directly in a way I don't, but lovingly, in a way that I don't think I would have been able to. And it's actually healing beyond my expectations,
Mhm.
from a very difficult place, a
Mm.
very hurtful place from past history in our family. And just the fact that we're healing from something so difficult, is just, it's like, I can't even tell you. And there's a lot of other things in general when I'm just with people. I think I listen better. Um, so stuff like that. Yeah.
Mm. It's so good. I know what you mean, right? It's just it's incredible. It's like we don't think, well, this relationship's never going to change because that person's never going to change, you know? So I'm just going to have to like deal with it or let it go or, you know, whatever the thing is, we kind of stay irritated.
Hmm.
And what's so remarkable is that when you get free from some of these things that have a hold on you internally, it creates this internal lightness. The addictions fall away, but what also happens is that your relationships transform without anything about the other people in your life changing at all, without any circumstances in your life changing at all. It's
Right.
like everything becomes different.
Hmm.
And that's so remarkable and so magical, especially if we're living in circumstances that we feel like, you know, victimized to, you know,
Exactly.
well, this person in my family or this dynamic in my household or this way at work or whatever it is, like I just can't, it's out of my control. And to imagine that you can have a transformative experience that completely takes you to a new level with
Hmm.
your, you know, dynamics, with your relationships, with your circumstances, with your experience of your life. It's like that's yes, please. You know, where can I sign up for more of that? So let me ask you this, Tommy, for someone who's listening right now, who's just thinking, yeah, that's great for you, Tommy. That's great for you, Deb. That just wouldn't work for me. What do you want to let someone know who's kind of in that place of thinking, gosh, I'm relating to some of this stuff and I'm definitely wanting these things. I just don't know if that would work for me. What would you say?
What did I say? That's hard for me to know because there are so many things that people tell themselves.
Hmm.
That's about, everybody's got a story and a self-concept. And I think our self-concepts, our beliefs, um, the things that we're almost addicted to thinking, the opinions that we have, um, block us from maybe discovering something new. Um, I think that, in essence, saying something akin to a set aside prayer and being
Hmm.
willing to ask yourself on a deep level what really, what's really going on for me. To be still and, actually, some people meditate, some people pray, some people don't do either, but some people go and talk to trees. What it's, I would say in some way or another, be still and, don't stop blaming yourself, thinking that you can fix it because it's not your fault, and stop blaming your situation, thinking you can fix it because you can't. And in lieu of not having anybody to blame and not blaming yourself, um, to really get quiet and look at your truth. And that's the only advice I can really give.
Mm. Yeah, and I love that because I feel like this whole process really has to start with that level of honesty. Am I willing to just get honest? And that question of am I willing to, am I willing to set aside everything that I think that I know, everything that I think that I need, everything that I think that I am, everything that I think is possible or what's not possible? Am I willing to just lay that aside for just a moment? To
Mhm.
open myself to a new experience And can I get honest with myself? And I know for me, I mean, that needing to get honest with myself at one point, you know, being this health and fitness expert who's supposed to have all the information, who's supposed to be the one who has the answers, who's supposed to be the one that tells other people what to do about health, who can't control or know what to do with her own food, who's restricting during the daytime and binging at nighttime and can't stop when she starts eating. I had to finally get to this place of honesty with inside of myself. Is the way that I'm being with food working?
Mhm.
Is this working?
Yeah.
And is my strategy of trying to have better discipline or better willpower, or, you know, not eating any carbs or cutting out the sugar or not eating before 12 or not eating carbs after 4 or only having certain things in the house or only having certain things in the car? That became one of my rules, like to have to with my nut butters, because I couldn't stop eating them. And it's like, well, then don't have them in the house. And then I was like, okay, well, then I can just have them in the car. But then I was just eating the whole thing when I was in the car. Um, and, you know, what I would say to someone who is really thinking, I don't think that this is working or can work for me, I would say that if it is similar at all to what I was struggling with, and what I think you were struggling with too, Tommy, which it sounds like, which was trying to fix a problem that you didn't fully understand
Mhm.
and doing it with an incomplete or insufficient or even broken strategy, right? Trying to get on the diet, trying to guilt or shame yourself, trying to, right? I mean, it was a lot of trying to figure it out in your mind, right?
Absolutely. No, that's what I mean, that was one of the biggest reliefs, is getting off that damn merry-go-round.
100%. And so
Right.
what tends to happen that I find, and this is what I was doing too, was trying to solve this problem that I didn't really understand, right? Because I didn't think I had an addiction and I didn't even know what an addiction was. And doing it with a strategy that was like, might have fixed somebody else's problems, but it was not an effective strategy to actually address mine. And
Mhm.
so what I was doing was I was saying, oh, well, must be something wrong with me because I can't stick to the diet the way that she does. There must be something
Right.
wrong with me because I'm seeing that person losing the weight and I keep on putting it back on. There must be something wrong with me because I tell myself I'm only going to have a little bit and I end up eating the whole thing. There's something wrong with me because I'm eating when I'm not hungry, because I'm not stopping when I get full. So there must be something wrong with me. I just can't get this. And
Mhm.
what I say to people is it's not that you are inadequate, it's that your strategy has been inadequate.
Mhm.
And all that needs to happen is you getting the clarity about what the real problem is
Mhm.
and what the real solution is to lasting freedom. And when you can actually gain access to that, you can get free. This process is not for special people. This is
Right.
for people who are willing to get honest. And this is what I say. This is what I say to all the folks who I work with. Are you willing to get honest? And are you willing to show up even when you get into your stuff? Even when you get into your story, even when you get into your resistance, even when you get into your frustration, even when you get into your judgment about the process, about the program, about me. It doesn't matter. Show up anyway. If you're
Mhm.
willing to do those two things, get honest and show up even when you're in your stuff, I have not seen this process fail for people.
Yeah, I think too is that what happens is that, and it's not easy. I mean, there's a lot of work involved in it, and I think that that not work in a bad way, but in a relieving way, because once it's done, you take about 1,000 pounds off your shoulders, and that I mean, that's how it felt to me. I felt like I had a yoke around my neck, and I
Mhm.
felt like it got lifted. And but it was at the expense of my willingness to feel what was real. And there was a lot of pain in there, and there was a lot of stuff that I had to clear away. And it was really good work. But definitely, if you're willing to be honest and willing to feel your feelings, this works.
Yeah, absolutely. And And I'd love to also just speak into for a moment, because I speak with a lot of people and they're like, oh, I know there's something in there. And I don't know that I want to feel that right now. It's
Yeah.
scary. It's really scary. And that's why I feel like the way that we approach this process is in little baby steps, in
Uh-huh.
little micro steps, so that you're just doing a little bit. And by the time you're going into some of the deeper places, like what Tommy's
Mhm.
talking about, you
Right.
actually have such a strong foundation that you're
Exactly.
ready to go there. So it's not like, drinking out of a fire hose on day two, where you're just like, you're just blown out. It's like,
I kind of
or
might have said that a little bit. I mean, I didn't put a context in that. You're right. Yeah.
or the people who are listening to this right now going, I've been in therapy for 10 years. I've been working on myself my whole life. I don't want to do more work on myself. I want to stop this trying to fix something. And
Exactly.
and that's the whole thing, is that I find if we have been working on ourselves or trying to fix ourselves, that's part of the broken strategy.
Right.
And so it's about actually learning how, like, the paradigm of trying to get things under control or trying to fix what's wrong, or trying to figure things out. It actually all lives in a certain paradigm that's holding you hostage from the very freedom that you want. And so this process is actually about, no, 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 it's not that work. It's other distinctions that are actually showing you the next level tools that are going to allow you to access an entirely new way of being, that is full of ease, that is full of
Right.
fulfillment and joy, that's not like you having to work at it all the time. Would you agree?
Yeah. No, now, I mean, at this point, there is a steady state that I feel of connectedness, and it is what is become. You can call it spirituality, but you don't have to. I mean, but there is a sense of presence and connectedness to something that is greater than me. That is that some deeper wisdom, what you want to call it. I mean, some people have a problem with defining this on some divine level, but it just doesn't matter. Whatever you feel is present within you, that is inspirational, um, is what we're talking about. And that identification with that and forming a relationship with that is what has saved me and taken it off of my shoulders and allowed me to go through that more difficult part of the process. And that's what held me and comforted me through it. And yeah, so it does get it eases you into it. It's not like you jump right in. There's a sense of forming this relationship that that you have something to lean on through it,
Mhm.
you know.
Yeah, and just have that feeling you're going to be okay no matter what. It's incredible. It's so
Yeah.
incredible. So, Tommy, in a word or a phrase, what would you say, like, just like summarizes or encapsulates what your, like, how you be today, like what your experience is today? If before your life was filled with frustration or struggle, like, what do you feel like your life is filled with for today?
Gratitude, joy, love, and a lot more fun.
That's amazing. Who wants more fun? I want more fun in my life. That's amazing. Tommy, you have been such an inspiration. I just want to thank you for being of service in all the ways that you are, and just who you be. One of the things that we speak about in the Freedom Embodied Academy is this notion of embodying the very light that is pouring through you, the very love that's emanating through you, the very power that flows through you, so that who you be is the gift, that you are the light, that you are the gift, that you really are this. And just how you've shown up in the world is a gift. And how you've shown up here today, Tommy, is an absolute gift. How you show up in our program, being a mentor to some of the other women in the program, is a gift. How you're showing up in your life is a gift. And I just want to say that I see you so deeply, sister, and I love you so much.
I see you, and oh my gosh, the gifts that you bring through and I don't know if you feel this way, but it's hard. I used to not take credit. I used to be a lot more self-deprecating, but now I realize that, yes, there is a gift coming through me, but I also shape the gift in the way it comes out. So I can now, for the first time in my life, feel the meanness that's coming from this energy that's coming through me. It's not really personal, but there's my personal stamp on it, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
You know, and we've all got our different ways of molding and shaping how it comes out.
Yes.
But I'm so grateful that I found a way to be more of an open vessel. And I am so grateful to you. I can't even tell you about that. So
Love you so much.
I
Everybody,
love
thank
you.
you. Thank you for tuning in here today. It's been such a pleasure to be with you. Tommy, stick around. We're gonna end, and we will connect, and we will connect with you very, very soon. Tommy, stick around.
Okay.
Love you all very much. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.